Inflation is on a lot of people's mind now. Something that I've been talking about for a while, people are now starting to notice, is that in most Western countries over the past few years, inflation, cumulative inflation, was about 100%, sometimes more, just over the last few years, and yearly inflation between 10 and 15%, again, in some cases more. Some people will now say that the inflation figures from the government were quite different, quite a bit lower than that. Of course, the official inflation figures are nonsense. Well, partly. What you have to understand is that inflation isn't really one thing. It's kind of, yes, on one hand, it's change in money supply. If we took that definition, it would be much higher than what I said. But, in practical terms, it's the change of prices of things. And of course, not everything goes up the same amount. So if we look at prices of food, of housing, of energy, they went up 2 or even 3 times in just the past few years. But then you have things like international travel, plane tickets, luxury watches, where they almost didn't go up in price at all for over a decade or multiple decades. And if you include these things, then you get some average, which is kind of meaningless, especially to most people, because most people are not, for me, actually, it is quite useful that the inflation hasn't been that much in some of these things, because I do travel quite a lot. But for most people, this is not the case. So, housing, food, and energy are the most relevant. And then really the inflation has been 2 or 3 times increase in prices over just past few years. And of course, the problem is that your income hasn't kept up. And that's the real problem. But it's quite difficult to keep up your income. If you're a business, you will have to keep adjusting your prices all the time. At some point, maybe your customers don't want to pay anymore if it's not an essential service like housing or food or energy. They might say, oh, maybe we don't need this, or they'll try to find someone else. But if you're employed, it's even more difficult, how do you convince your boss to give you automatic increase 15% every year? Or do you have to change jobs every year? A lot of people are trying to do that now, which is now quite difficult for people who are trying to find a new job, to find something for this reason. And even if you put it in the contract, they will probably fire you at some point in that case. So one solution, of course, would be using a non-inflationary currency, because then it doesn't really matter, because you're always paid the same amount and everybody's doing the same thing. So that is why the problem is the fiat currencies, like dollar, euro, British pound, even Swiss franc. Swiss franc has been relatively good. It's been doing very well against other currencies. But even so, if you look at the past decades, even they had inflation, and even in the past few years as well. So this is the reason also why things like Bitcoin, or it's part of the reason why things like Bitcoin and gold are doing very well at the moment. And these price changes are not something unexpected. Many of us who understand these things about the fiat system, about inflation, about these assets, they saw this coming, and we are not surprised by these price changes. And this is why for some of us, this, putting money into gold, while other people said a few years ago, when gold was 1,600 or 1,800 dollars per ounce, they said it would be crazy to buy it now, and look where we are now. So the same with Bitcoin. Or people said, this is speculation. Well, it wasn't, because we understood the reason why it's going up, why it's going to continue going up, and where it can go. Of course, we didn't know when. So that is the part of the thing. When you put money into something like this, you have to understand why that asset is going to go up, why it's going to continue go up, how high it can go, why you're doing it. And you also have to understand that maybe the horizon for the amount of the asset, for the increase in the value of the asset, it's not really clear, because it depends on a lot of things. With gold, for example, sometimes there's inflation for a while, and the price isn't changing much, and then it jumps up. It kind of catches up. So if you look at the chart, you will see that something like this has been happening. So you have to be able to not rely on that you need to cash it out by a certain date. So it's kind of more like a long-term saving vehicle.